Good evening and welcome to the East Lyme Board of Finance special meeting. Today is Monday, March 24th, 2025. The time is 5:30. I'd like to begin by calling the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is delegations, when any member of the public can speak to items that are on the agenda tonight. Yep. Barry, when you come to the podium, if you could just state your name and address, please.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you could keep your comments to 5 minutes, that would be great.
3 minutes I'll be.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm on camera and everything's all set after
You're good to go.
makeup, whatever. Thanks. Hi, my name is Barry Sheckley. I live here in Niantic, 21 Compass Court. I've become really interested in the town governance issues and budgeting stuff. I'm a retired professor from the University of Connecticut, so questions intrigue me. And working on the Charter Commission last year and then working on the Capital Improvement Commission, I became really interested in how this whole process of budgeting and town work and the charter's revision and the charter's charge and the capital improvement project worked. And so using that background, I came up with some ideas for possible consideration of questions that Board of Finance might have while they're looking at the Board of Ed budget tonight. So with that kind of background, I've kind of gave you a handout on this. The first question that you might consider is kind of an overarching one that in accord with the town charter's charge to advance effectiveness and efficiency in town governance, to what extent does the $64 million Board of Education budget proposal demonstrate accountability in efficiently and effectively advancing students' academic performance, students' academic growth, school improvement, Board of Education goals, and budget reductions? So in the first one on students' academic performance, if you look on page 3, you'll see in the top chart there that line 1A is the performance measure for students' English language arts, and line C is a performance measure for students' math. It's a math performance index. And the goal for the state is for students to get a score of 75 on those. And this is a test of items that are reasonably considered grade level items for students to look at. And just a behind the scenes thing, 75 is a pretty soft target for this. You know, if we looked in terms of our own kids' grades and whatever, if 75 is about a C on a scale of 0 to 100. So a possible question, and if you look down to chart 2, you'll see under Every Student Succeeds Act. It's a federal act that sets milestones for different towns. You see the milestones they've set for 24 and 25 for East Lyme are 75 and 73 respectively. So a question that you might consider when you're looking at the budget is, to what extent does the Board of Education budget proposal demonstrate accountability for using the taxpayer's $64 million investment effectively to advance students' academic performance towards the ESSA performance milestones? Second group of questions relate to students' academic growth. Again, if you look at chart A, lines 2 and 2C, these are growth measures for English language arts and math. Now, working with a couple of testing agencies nationally, after the initial thing that Bush put through for performance measures, the national testing organizations looked at the performance scores. They realized those were inadequate, so then there was a whole movement nationally to come up with growth scores. And basically what a growth score is, it's normed to every individual student using a statistical measure. And it's so, like if a student is at, say, 70 at the start of the year, they could say have a growth score of 75, and they would expect to get 75 at the end of the year. And that would represent 100% growth, and that's the target. So if you look at chart 1, line 2A, you'll see that 67% of East Lyme students are making their growth target in English language arts, and line 2C showing that 71% are making their growth target in math. If you look down to chart 2, under the Every Student Succeeds Act, you'll see that the milestones that the federal government has set are about 15 percentage points higher, and those are that the growth target for English would be 83, and for math would be 84. So a possible question that the Board of Finance might consider is, to what extent does the Board of Ed budget proposal demonstrate accountability for using taxpayers' $64 million investment effectively to advance students' academic growth towards ESA performance milestones? A third set of questions might relate to school improvement plans. Now, going back in history, when the pandemic hit, the State Department used to have a kind of suggestion to schools to set school improvement plans. That requirement was pulled during the pandemic. I don't know. I looked through the Board of Education's website to see if I could find any more recent school improvement plans. But the best I could find were 2021, which I gave you an example of that. But somewhere I'm wondering if the Board of Ed does have school improvement plans of some nature in place. Then a possible consideration that the Board of Finance could have for a question would be, to what extent does the Board of Education budget proposal demonstrate accountability for using taxpayers' $64 million investment effectively to advance school improvement plans? The fourth set is, if you look on page 4 and 5, the Board of Education has goals, and I've listed a couple here. And so a possible question for consideration by the Board of Finance, is, to what extent does the Board of Education budget proposal demonstrate accountability for using taxpayers' $64 million investment to effectively advance Board of Education goals? And the last set of questions relate to possible budget reductions. East Lyme has non-instructional contracts with organizations like the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education, which I believe is somewhere around $20,000. So a possible question that the Board of Finance could ask is, to what extent has the Board of Education budget proposal demonstrated accountability in terms of effective practice to cancel outside non-instructional contracts to reduce its budget proposal before asking additional money from the town? And another possible question is that, in terms of fundraising, the high school uses a group called Snap Rise to raise money for student athletics. Now, if you looked at this company, they have a 20% overhead rate. So that means that approximately 100,000 students participate in athletic endeavors over the course of a year. If each of those students raised under Snap Rise, what they do is they send notes to grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, and whatever, and say, I'm playing volleyball, would you please, contribute to my team? And so if those 1,000 students raised $50 each, that would be like $50,000, which would mean that 20,000 would go to Snap Rise. So a possible question is, to what extent has the Board of Ed demonstrated accountability in using effective fundraising practices that reduce its budget proposal before asking additional money from the town? So anyway, that's it. I hope these questions and these ideas are helpful to the Board of Finance as you're considering this budget request. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barry. And thank you again for your service on the Town Charter Committee and the Capital Improvement Committee. Anyone else? If you could state your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Timothy Dowd, 66 East Patagonic. I'm a teacher at the high school, and I have two small children in the district as well. I guess I'm here to defend the Board of Education budget, which we've watched the process play out over the last several months. And it's been very clear that the budget Superintendent Newton presented to the Board of Ed and the Board of Ed debated over, it's not a growth budget. It's not a, pie in the sky budget. This is a, what do we need to do to keep things at the level they're currently at budget? It's in line with the towns around us. I hesitate to give specific numbers, but if you look at our surrounding districts, we're asking for a comparable amount of money. And that means that if we are to cut from that, that's going to be balancing the budget on the back of the kids at East Lyme, which I feel pretty strongly against. As to the comments just made, this has been a very tough time to be an educator. The National Assessment of Educational Progress shows that as a country, we are in deep trouble when it comes to where our children are at right now. So to look at East Lyme's scores and say that there's some malfeasance happening or that the district's not doing the best it can be doing, I think that's a little disingenuous. I think at the moment, everybody is on board with getting our kids to the place they need to be. We're opening up new pathways to people. The work Dave Fazzulo has been doing to direct kids who maybe college wasn't the best route for them, direct them to other places, find other jobs for them. That's the kind of work we need to be doing. And if we're going to cut, I don't see how that's going to help some of the progress numbers that were cited. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? On to new business. And first item on the agenda is a review of the Board of Education budget. Mr. Bauman, do you want to start?
Hi, Eric Bauman from Board of Ed Chair, and appreciate everyone you taking the time. I know this is a challenging time, and really appreciate all the questions we got in advance, Rich and Denise, and maybe some others that I didn't even see. So I thought I'd take a minute. We've started this process in November, so we take a long time to get to this point, which shows the amount of scrutiny and diligence that we play to get to the numbers that we're providing to you. We had some challenges this year. Special ed costs, we talk about special ed costs a lot. A few students move into town, a few students move out of town. It can be a material shift in dollars and what's needed. And we had a few students move into town, so it's about $500,000. Superintendent Newton will talk more and go into some more details, but those few students, I think it's 3 students, $500,000. So you can see where that can really swing numbers with just a few students going in or out of town. Transportation costs are up across, definitely across Connecticut, and I'm sure across the nation. So there's another driver, in addition to our normal increases. So those are the things that are driving up. The Board of Ed, we did spend a lot of time scrutinizing. So Superintendent Newton presented his budget, and then we went through a process where we did come through reductions. So there were 6 vacancies, so 6 positions that we had that we were planning on filling that we did eliminate as the Board of Ed. So those we won't be hiring. And we did reorganize, I think Jeff will talk more about that, of a few positions on the technology side to find some savings, as well as how we are supporting our technology department. And so overall, we have looked in different ways. Sorry, I knew there was a third. The third is looking and partnering with other districts. So you'll see in the presentation more about some of the different partnerships that we've created with different districts. Again, looking to advance our education of our students, provide broader opportunity, at the same time finding savings. So those are some of the things that we've done. I think it's also important to note in terms of our academic achievement, you may have seen Money Inc. just rated East Lyme 10th best high school in the state. And if you look at the districts that are 1 through 9, many of them have budgets significantly more than ours. They come from the other side of the state where there's a little more funding and everything. So being ranked 10th is phenomenal. You'll also see, and I can't remember, Rich or Denise, one of you asked a question about achievement to cost, and you can see our academic achievement compared to other towns in our DERG. We're at the far right, which is where you'd want to be, is the high end of academic achievement. So I think we're doing well. Obviously, you can always improve. We'll do things differently, but I think we're doing well. And I guess the last thing I'd say is where we got to for the 6.72 budget that we've presented is any significant reduction from there is going to result in reducing not vacant slots, but people's roles. So we'll have to reduce staff at that point. We have a handful of vacant slots remaining, and then anything else. We don't have many levers to pull other than that. So just so you know, that's where we got to as a Board of Ed is we got to this point, and the next step would be pretty impactful. So I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Newton, who will go through all the details, and I'm happy to be here to answer questions, and we're all here. So thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Baumann. There we go. The slide deck that you see on the screen is our Board of Finance members have that in front of you. So we'll start by going through that. But before we jump into that slide deck, and I believe too, I just want to make sure everybody received a budget book last week. Okay, great. All right, so good. Before we jump in, let me just first start by thanking the team, especially the individuals that are sitting here before us, starting with our Board of Education members and some of our school staff. This administrative team does an awful lot. And the budget, when you develop a budget, as Mr. Baumann said, it starts early, and it starts at the school level, and then it works its way up to central office. So a lot of effort and time went in to what our teachers and our staff put together, to what the principals review and put together as a final school-based document that then comes up to central office, and then we take over at central office. So many thanks to Mrs. Spaziano, our assistant superintendent, for her work, Mrs. Davis, our director of student services, and Mrs. Stevens, who does a phenomenal job rolling over the budget, putting everything together. You're talking almost 800 line items. There's a lot that goes into it when you look at the whole picture. So we have a phenomenal team in East Lyme, and proud of every one of them. So I just want to start off by thanking them. When we talk about East Lyme Public Schools, it's not just about academic achievement. I've been in this district 10 years, and from day one, my focus has always been on the whole child. We need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support the whole child and all aspects of the whole child. And just some accolades on some things that we have done just this year. Involving students in a composting program. One of our teachers at the high school has raised upwards of $15,000 already and has a composting program running with students helping out, staff. So something new that we started this year, all from the groundwork of a teacher bringing that to the Board of Education and bringing that to fruition. Hosting student interns across our schools. We have over 25 interns that work across our buildings. That's a high number. That's a great connection with multiple colleges and extra supports in our classrooms. Community and peer mentor and program growth. We currently have 19 community members. There's community members in East Lyme who are mentors for just over 20 students. Some of them have 2 or 3 mentees, but they are in mentoring, meeting with students across our schools. Just a program that had been formulated, and that's a couple years in the running now, but it's grown this year specifically, so we're proud of that. Some accolades with our financial high school award winners for the Distributive Educational Clubs of America, group of students going down to Florida, actually next week I believe it is, because they were champions for the state. Our ECC, you talk about sports, number of teams that have won ECC championships, and we have, again, well-rounded students that are doing multiple things. Elementary school mystery, guest readers, through the month of March to celebrate Dr. Seuss's birthday at the elementary level. We had over 150 community and individuals come in to read, to students, parents. So great connection, again, with parents in our community. Mr. Baumann mentioned, 10th best high school ranked by Money Inc. That's an accomplishment. All those other districts, DIRG A, DIRG B districts, and our band, so sports band is a national champion in the U.S. bands competition that occurred. So, again, that picture of providing opportunities to make sure we have a well-rounded education for our kids is what's most important to us. Just briefly, because many of you have seen on slide 3, our process. So we mentioned it starts early, and it starts with our budget workshops. We've invited, members of the boards to come to our workshops, where we, out of the gate in November, we have just rolled over the budget. And then we share that information out. We share about interests, things that we might want to pursue for the next year. So we talk about those items, and then we work through our budget from there. Then our December workshop, we've cleaned up what the rollover was, and then we work to a presentation in January, and then the Board of Ed does their work through February, with the adoption that occurred this year on February 24th. So we'll talk a little bit more about those numbers in just a second, from where we started, in November to where we got to in February. Every budget has a story. Again, I've been doing this a number of years, and every year has a little bit more of a unique story to it. This year's story is back to fixed costs and costs for special education and transportation. Obviously, salaries and benefits always go up. We have contracts and contractual obligations that we have to meet. But if you look at the tuition line item, $557,530, those are unanticipated special education costs of student needs across our district. That's almost 1% of our budget for an increase. So that could have gone the other way. We could be standing here saying, we had a decrease of almost $600,000 because some students that had needs might have moved to another town. Remember, if a student moves into town, we take over whatever obligation or needs there are for that child. So we had some students that moved in that require some significant services. Transportation too, we have special education transportation costs in there for some outplaced students, as well as our overall general busing transportation. Working on signing a new contract with our fleet, our first student. We got a pretty good deal, staying with them, but costs across the board, any town, busing costs, fuel, everything is and pay for drivers has increased. So we have an increase there. So those are kind of the cost drivers for this $64 million budget. Now, on the good side, and good news, we had an 11%. We started off at an 8% in our budget with the Board of Education for insurance. We moved it up to 11% after the Board of Ed deliberated some, just because of some information we had gotten from the state. We're all in the state partnership plan together, as we know. And we have most recently heard, as of last week, that insurance is now set at it's 8.88% for the school district. So we just rounded it up to 9%. So that's a savings of $150,000. So right out of the gate, our 6.72, has gone down by $150,000. So just so we're aware there, that's what the number will be set at. Back to those numbers when I was talking about the timeline on slide 6. When we came out of the gate in November, we were almost at $65 million with an 8.26% increase. Then in December, we worked that down. We comb through the budget, we cross-check line items. Sometimes they're duplicates from what the school might have sent up to what we have in our budget. We catch those, and we're able to decrease and went down to 6.99%. That was what was presented to the Board of Education in January. And hence the Board of Education adopted a $64,057,400 budget, which represents that 6.72%, minus $150,000 now for insurance. What work did the Board of Education do? Mr. Baumann mentioned that there was some deliberations, obviously, that took place. The Board of Ed took a look at what we had presented. On slide 7, you can kind of see the items that were reduced. We had to, as I mentioned, we increased the insurance out of the gate from 8 to 11, and that's back down to 9 now. But we reduced 5 paraeducator positions. We removed some items, our integrated preschool playground, some fencing work needed to be done. We can hold off on that. Up behind the high school, soccer field resodding, we took that out. That technology reorganization. So we've been contracting with custom computers. So we reorganized that to bring a few of those staff members on board with us, which is saving us about $40,000, and we're just using custom for our engineering support and some managed services. So that was a savings in reconfiguring how we're doing that. A door was removed that needed replacement, working on other ways to get that fixed. A special education piece of software was removed, fairly expensive, something we can go without for another year. Then we had the removal of one elementary teaching position already, and Mrs. Stevens had reclassed a teacher to a grant for a savings of $44,000. So the Board of Ed's adjustment reflects $163,000. There are staffing needs as we look at next year on slide 8. At the middle school level, we are in need of a 1.0 school psychologist. Caseloads for the current school psychologists in that building, there's 2, are upwards of 40 students. Those numbers continue to rise. That's more evaluations, more time in meetings with students, more PPTs that they need to be part of. Hence, they are way above the average of where the caseload numbers should be. So we are in need of putting in another school psychologist at the middle school. That position is in the 6.72. Also, family and consumer science, we are in need of going from a 0.4 to a 0.6, a 0.4 to a 1.0 family and consumer science teacher. The state has mandated the financial literacy course that every student at the high school must take. That wasn't the case previously, but now that every student must take it, we need to make sure we have enough sections to be able to account for that. So hence we need another individual that's certified or additional FTE that's certified to be able to teach that for students. Retirements and vacancies, very few retirements this going into next year. As you can see, there's 3 of them that we have. As Mr. Bauman said, further reductions in the budget are unfortunately going to impact individuals in their roles because we don't have enough attrition where we have retirements, or we can move people or eliminate positions and not eliminate individuals' jobs. So that's very concerning to us. Obviously, we never want to see somebody lose their job, but very few staff retirements. Now, we have a bubble in the next 2 to 3 years. There is a larger group in there we're going to see of retirees that are on the horizon. So we'll be looking at that closely as we move through the next couple years. Fixed costs, we always like to, one year we left this slide out on slide 9 and we were asked to put it back in, so we always want to continue to show our fixed costs. 98.8% of our $64 million budget is associated with fixed costs. It's contractual obligations and health insurance. Those are the 2 biggest fixed expenses. There's that small sliver, and we call it Mrs. Spaziano's sliver, as we've related to now, where textbooks, supplies, that she has a little bit of wiggle room, and she's already made some reductions going into next year. So that's at 3.2%. So bless you. So majority again, all of our operating budget is based off of contracts and fixed costs. Past history of budgets, just to give you a little snapshot of the last few years of, on the left-hand side, you'll see the preliminary budget of what we initially came out to the first budget workshop with, and then you go left to right in each of the sections of columns. You can see my proposed budget, and then the Board of Education adopted budget, and then ultimately what was approved at the town level. So fairly consistent. 23, 24 was a tough year. Our ESSER dollars had run out. We had some positions that had moved into the operating budget. And you can see on the far right column, we're at the 6.72 with the Board of Education's adopted budget. So it just gives you a little history. Per pupil expenditures, our per pupil expenditure has gone up some. We previously, and this is always a year behind, but this is a area town regional comparison here. So you can see East Lyme's gone from $20,689 per student up to $23,245. And then on the next slide is a DIRG comparison. Same thing, but at least you get a representation of the DIRG and where per pupil expenditures are. And you look at those districts that are higher than us. Our scores are higher than most everybody in those categories. So we've done well in that sense, but our per pupil expenditure has gone up. Everybody wants about future enrollment too. We track trends yearly and obtain this information. This was obtained back towards the beginning of the school year. It's pretty close to where we are right now. The trend, our projection was 2,518 students for this current year. we're just under that, just under 2,500 students. It starts to creep up after next year, out to 2032, 33, where we're closing in on 2,600 students, or 2,550, I should say. So pretty consistent for when we look across the district, the students coming in, students going out, and where the numbers are projected to be. And again, this has been pretty darn accurate as it pertains to our future enrollment. Shared services, some important items here that we have really worked hard over the last few years, especially this past year and past 2 years, on trying to do more effort in cost mitigation and sharing services. Obviously, we try and look across the town. So, utilities, financial software, Munis, shared service. Our mail courier is a shared service. But we're trying to obviously branch out to other districts too, and find ways to not go and purchase something ourselves or start a program ourselves, but to share it with another town to be able to save money. Case in point, you look at the nursing supervisor. The Visiting Nurses Association, VNA, they had disbanded and decided not to cover school districts anymore in southeastern Connecticut. So for this current year, Waterford used VNA, we use VNA. We decided, hey, we have to hire our own nurses, both districts. Let's hire a joint nursing supervisor, split the cost rather than each hiring a nursing supervisor, because you need to have one. And then we can have that person go between the two districts. We're small enough to be able to do that. So that individual is sharing subs too across the two schools. So it's a savings as well as a good model that we're proud of, and is working very well this year. I'll talk about the Regional Remote Learning Project and the regional course collaboration piece in a second, but let me just mention Salem. Salem being a one-school operation, we have just over 400 students, it behooves and benefits them to have outside contractors, per se, oversee their services, food services, facilities, and security. They use us, so they pay us, and our directors cover Salem School for those items. So we run their food service program, we oversee their security and give them advice and support, and go up and handle issues that may occur, and we cover all of their facilities as well. And they pay East Lyme. So it works, and is be able to support our district as well. Those other two, I broke those out a little bit further because I really wanted to kind of hit upon these. The Regional Remote Learning Partnership, this has been in the works. I probably mentioned this last year because it's been in the works for about 2 to 3 years now. And this is a group of 6 districts, Learn included, that has worked hard to be able to create Learn as the Hub, a regional remote learning project where we can offer classes to each other across the schools outside of the school day. Evening classes, asynchronous and synchronous, so they're virtual and a little bit of time on site in the breakdown, but they're still meeting the 900 hours that they need, and they're meeting the number of hours they need for a semester class as well. And I'll give the example of Old Saybrook. Old Saybrook is a smaller school district. They might not have a course that we offer, or Waterford offers as bigger districts. They could, if one of our teachers is offering one of these remote classes, those students can take that class and earn credit for it. Vice versa too. Other districts that are partaking, we might have some of our students reach out. So it's in its infant stages of startup. We're hoping for the fall it's going to kick off, or maybe even try a summer class this summer. So we're working on we've gotten through all the red tape, and you'd be amazed the amount of red tape to be able to do something like this across 6 districts with contracts, unions, etc. But it's exciting. The other piece is the EMT and auto shop course. So I mentioned Waterford for nursing supervisor services. We're also working with Waterford and Old Lyme for an EMT course. So East Lyme offers an outstanding EMT course. We have an EMT teacher, Mrs. Toronto, who provides that full year course. We have students from Waterford who come over, and we have students from Old Lyme who are coming over this year and are taking that course and paying us to do that, a tuition amount. Next year, we've established Waterford High School has a full auto shop with a car lift, and they have automotive courses that they offer their students. We don't have those. So we're going to allow up to 6 students, and Waterford, I should say, is allowing up to 6 students to go to Waterford High School. So we've worked out the red tape of that and schedules and everything else to be able to offer 6 of our students to go over there. In addition, Furman's Garage, everybody has heard of Furman's Garage in town, over in the Flanders area. Will Furman, outstanding individual who has offered an amazing opportunity for our kids to go to his garage and earn credit for a course that they're taking there too. So another opportunity, no cost to us. Kids can go and they're working on cars. I've been there. It's amazing. They use his tools, so we don't have to buy tools. Really great opportunity for our kids too. So these are part of those pathway expansion programs that we are working harder and harder to expand out that aren't costing us any money, but we're able to use services such as that. So exciting opportunities that we continue to work towards. And I know we had shared some information you saw in Pathways, a listing, if you saw that email from some of the questions that you had asked, of all of the work that we've done this year with Pathways. But just, I had already previously put this in the slide deck of, the connections that we've made and the vast opportunities for students that are and are not going to college. Students that aren't going to college, great opportunities for trades with welding and working internship programs at the seaport, electrical, sheet metal, but also students that are going to college. Last year we had a student that was going to UConn to become an engineer, but wanted to learn how to weld because he felt someday he might be overseeing individuals that are doing welding. So he wanted to know what it was about, how to do it. He took the course, and it was phenomenal. So, but he's off, at UConn now. So those are just, again, more opportunities for kids. We continue to work to grow that. With that, I'll say thank you for hearing me with the presentation, and we're here to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Jeff. That was very comprehensive. I know I had forwarded you a bunch of questions. And,
Yes.
I thought that, if we could start with those and then see what else comes up. I know you provided answers, but I think it's good for the listening public to also get a chance to hear your comments. So we had asked to provide the class sizes across, all the schools and how they compare to our DRG group. And I believe you've supplied a chart. I don't know whether you have it.
Let me go back and see. I don't have it in front of me. I'm just going to go. Are we all set with the PowerPoint? I'm going to go off the PowerPoint. And,
Sure.
Okay. All right. That way I can get back into my slide deck. But go ahead and ask you guys your question. We should remember what some of those were.
So you had provided a chart, and I guess one of the things that really kind of jumped out at me was at the high school level, where the class sizes across the board, and we're looking at East Lyme, Woodstock, Clinton, Norwich, Rocky Hill, RSD 18, Mansfield, R19, I'm not sure who IDCS is, RSD 10, and Waterford.
Integrated charter school, yeah.
And so we've got class sizes that seem very small to me, 14.2, 15.1. I mean, when I was in school, we had 30 kids in the class. But again, they seem very low in comparison to
Thanks.
our peers here.
Yeah, it's a mix. There are some class sizes currently that are, we'll leave that up, at least just in case you need to go back to it, thanks, that are lower. And there are some that are higher. So we couldn't capture all of the districts. We had limited time to try and reach out. So it gave you a small snapshot, of some other districts. We don't know how accurate that information is, because remember, what we're asking too, they might have a different course setup or different how they project or share numbers, for class. So it's not apples to apples, but at least it gives kind of a snapshot. But you're right, some of our class sizes are lower.
And it seemed that it was predominantly at the high school where they were
Yes.
lower.
Yes, yeah, our middle school is right kind of in the sweet spot right now of being between 20 and 24. Our elementaries are, within, around our guidelines. But the high school, there was a bubble. A couple years back, there was a bubble that went through the middle school, and we had reduced Akiva. And through attrition, we were able to eliminate some positions, so it eliminated a whole Kiva in that school. That bubble is now at the high school, so there's a lesser amount of students that are up there, so there's been a decline.
And with AP courses, classes, how big are those?
They range. They'll range anywhere from 9 up to 24, 25. Some of those, an AP course and a course that may not be an AP could be combined too, so they can run the course. So I see a head shaking over here, so maybe he knows that. So there is combining of classes as well. That happens too, but anywhere from that 9 to 24 range for AP courses.
And you have 20, there's 20 different AP courses? Is that-
Approximately 20 AP courses right now, yes. Yeah. That's what's reflected in our numbers.
Okay. So then the next question, and this kind of segues into what Barry had been asking too. So I asked whether there was a measure available of test scores versus the cost per student, and you provided a graph there.
Yes. Yeah, so what that accountability index, and Mr. Bauman had alluded to it too, we're in that right quadrant, that high outcome, higher cost quadrant. So we would like to be down in that high outcome, lower cost quadrant. So we need to work and try and work our way back down there where we were at one point. But you can see, we're far exceeding most other districts in our academic and our accountability index.
And you already touched on the future enrollment that I had asked about. And I think I just also, going down the list, you said that the range of numbers in the AP classes is between 11 and 24. 11 definitely seems low for a class. You spoke, I know Richard asked about the pathways. I think
Yes.
you definitely touched on that in your presentation.
Yeah, it's provided 170 students with experiences to date. So
And I think these next few questions that you answered were, Richard, you had really posed them. Do you feel like you want to have any follow-up questions, or do you?
I have follow-up questions
Okay.
in addition to these. I
Okay.
don't know that for the sake of time.
Yeah,
that
I just
we
didn't
need
know
to go through that.
when you wanted to jump in or not.
Oh, okay. I can wait.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so then the coastal connections was morphed into pathways. We had asked about that. And then Richard asked about the Public Schools Foundation and
yes, the
Where
New
we
Education
stood for that.
Foundation. Yeah, kudos to the members of that committee, Ryan Schrader, Barbara Senges, and Tim Hagan for getting that off the ground, amongst help from others as well across the community. So we hope that grows, but it just isn't there necessarily to supplant, but it's going to provide teachers with some opportunities for some things.
And then one of the things that came up in the budget workshop number 2, I believe, one of the Board of Ed members questioned whether enforcing the distance limits for buses would present any savings. I think it's currently you're spending $377 or $378 a day on buses. Can you expound upon that? Do you think there's,
Well, I mean, just through experience, Kim, what was it, about 4 years ago, we eliminated 2 buses, and it was a nightmare. And it took us until November, almost Thanksgiving, to get things back, back on track. So to try and, we don't have a lot of walkers, so I mean, you could make the boundaries, but you're still going to have the students that are riding the bus.
so right now, how far away from the school, do we provide buses for?
It's 1 mile per the contract.
Yeah, and the policy, our board
You know what, if you could come to the microphone.
Board of Ed policy also asks you to look at the hazards that may be along the route. So it's not just about the distance. So for instance, if a student lives right along Boston Post Road, we wouldn't be able to ask them to walk because that's not safe. They're, depending on their age, K to 4. If there's a crossing of some sort that's a hazard, there's multiple hazards listed in the policy. So it's not always just about distance either. And our buses are structured in such that daily amount covers the high school, middle school, and elementary. So each vehicle drives for all 3 buildings. So they're sort of interconnected. So and that's why when people often ask us about high school students, having less ridership, if you cut the high school buses, you impact the middle school and the elementary runs as well. So.
Yeah, there'd be no savings in that sense if you were to remove it.
Okay. And then just could you clarify in your presentation where, I guess there's a couple of retirees coming up, so does your budget include replacing them or not replacing them?
It includes, we've already eliminated one of those positions at the elementary level. So through attrition, we are able to, nobody's going to lose their job. But the other ones we have, at this point, they're in next year's budget, and we need to replace, especially high school, the technology position, and the family and consumer science. We have to have those positions because every student has to take that financial literacy course. So,
Well, I'm all in favor of financial literacy. So.
yes, yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a cost. So, an unfunded mandate.
Yeah. And I think that was most of my questions. Not to say that I might not come up with more, but do you want to go down the line, Richard? I know you're always
okay.
ready with questions.
Okay. The first one is Mr. Bauman had mentioned 6 retirees in your slide deck. It looks like 3 retirees when I asked the question about net movement reduction or increase.
You want to clarify?
Yeah. There were, it wasn't retirees, it was 6 vacant positions. So we had open some para positions that were not currently filled, and we eliminated those positions. So it wasn't that I don't know why they became vacant, but they were vacant. It could be people left, it doesn't have to be a retiree, people could have left. So we had 6 positions that were open, and so it was 5 para positions and 1 teacher position that were open. The teacher was a retiree, the paras were people who must have left or for other reasons they vacated the position.
Okay. And if I understand correctly, the para salary is substantially less than a teacher's salary?
Yeah, I think we estimated about
20 to 25.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You mentioned the technology reorganization.
Yes.
And getting folks from custom computers on the payroll of the East Lyme Public Schools. How many individuals was that?
So the technology lead, and then 2 of the techs
Okay.
are coming over. So three staff members that are coming over.
They're all full-time?
Yes.
Okay. And it's interesting to me, a lot of organizations don't allow people to be plucked where they're contracted to the
Yes,
organizations.
you are
so
correct.
I tip my hat to you for being able to pull that off. What was the contract amount for custom computers?
$399,000.
And the salary with benefits for those 3 individuals that came in?
Total, where are we at? About almost 200 or 100 for the 67 each, right? I think. Yeah, like 220.
Okay, that's inclusive of benefits?
No, that's just salaries.
Okay, thank you. In looking, it was fortunate that Kevin had included the link to the school budget, that we received the book today. But in looking through that, there's some questions that I have. Line item 53220, which is professional development.
Just which tab are you under, Rich? Just so we make sure you're
I
under.
have no idea at this point.
Okay, that's all right. Just want to make sure. Yeah,
Okay.
got it. 220.
Yep.
So what?
Yeah, professional development.
Professional
Tab one.
development.
Yes.
On page
In-
14.
In 2025, it was at 35,000,
Yes.
and in 2026, it's 120,500 approximately.
Yes.
Why such an increase in professional development?
Majority of that is because of the new Wit and Wisdom reading program. I don't know if you remember, the state mandated districts to have to choose specific reading program, a K-5 reading program. We have our new program in place now. There's an associated cost, with that new program to make sure they're providing professional development for our teachers. It's pretty expansive. Mrs. Spaziano can elaborate a little bit more if we need to, but majority of that is for the professional development for our teachers.
Okay. Okay, and object number 55320, I don't know where in the book it is because I was just looking online at the budget. I think it's still the summary area.
It's on page,
Yeah.
page
You have
15.
the internet in 2025 internet service as 0, and then 2026 $40,000. How was it 0 last year?
Must be to the 0. Yeah. It's for the bandwidth. We had to expand the bandwidth.
It was previously included in telephones. I didn't think it was appropriate there, so this year we budgeted for it in internet service where it belongs, and there was an increase because we increased the bandwidth
Okay.
as well.
And I can't remember looking at the telephone line, but there's a corresponding decrease in that
Not
line?
40,000 because we did increase the bandwidth, so that
Rich.
was more than,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Object number 56510, software. It's almost $1 million, and I understand software contracts are expensive. Kevin has detailed some of that within the town side. Is it possible to get an itemization of the different software contracts? 'Cause that's a large amount of money.
It's a large amount of money, and there are a number of softwares that we use. Upwards of 60, I want to say 64 different, or 60 to 70 different software programs and platforms. What Mrs. Spaziano has done a nice job of is trying to consolidate to get like a 3-year agreement sort of thing. So, but sometimes when that 3rd year comes up, we pay for it. I don't know if you want to expand any further on some of the software programs, but a lot of them are expensive.
Yeah, they're expensive, and when there's
Just because
sorry.
the microphone.
Yeah, sorry.
So as Jeff had mentioned that, depending on the fiscal year in which software programs are up for renewal, sometimes we'll see sort of a bigger renewal come through. For example, Amplify is our literacy curriculum that we use at the middle school. That renewal costs $65,000 for a three-year renewal. And so, the cost catches up quite quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just, so you know, the phone went down 19,000.
Okay.
So Stephen just pointed that out.
Okay, thank you. Object number 58100, dues and fees. There isn't a tremendous increase over last year's, but what I noticed is each school varies tremendously for their dues and fees. And for example, Niantic Center School, their dues and fees had a tremendous increase. Is there an explanation why there's so many differences?
Niantic Center, I'd have to look that one up, Rich. I'm not sure. Do you remember, or do you see what the amount was? We went to,
I can't remember.
Niantic
It was
Center
a
School.
hefty percentage. It would be by location, I believe.
Let's see. Dues and fees, yeah. Well, no, dues and fees went down at Niantic Center School by $160. You sure it was Niantic Center? The high school is where most of those are because that increase really reflects a lot of the sports programs.
Okay. Excuse me. I must have been something else that I'd seen with that.
That's okay.
Okay. Okay. What's included in the other professional and technical services? Object number 53300, because professional technical services was only 53,200, or wait, no, that'd be the line item. But it looks like there's $1 million in other professional technical services.
Yeah, you want to, it's down $500, but
But still, I didn't see an explanation of what the other professional and technical services is.
So it's 53300, is that the one you're referring to?
53300.
Yeah, so those are our contracts for facilities, our HVAC contracts, any other contracted services through our facilities department. It's contracted services for security, our alarm system, our phone system. It's our, oh my goodness, the athletic trainer.
That's fine.
So that
I can
so
understand
yeah,
with
so
the
all of
equipment.
yes,
Yeah.
and all of that. So that's what that is.
Yeah, I was just trying to look
Sure.
at large numbers. I think I'll stop there. Just one question, and it may just be the age of the kids in our neighborhood and the number of children of various ages, but mostly I see fairly empty school buses. Are we able to get smaller buses, or at least some of the fleet be smaller buses, and would that impact the cost of transportation?
well, the problem becomes, and I can let Mrs. Davis elaborate a little bit more, is we have to make sure we're always offering, a ride for any student at any time. So if one in 1 week or 1 month, isn't getting on the bus, but something changes in their household, or maybe they just don't take the bus for a month because their college sister or brother was home, they drove them, they have to be able to get on the bus later. So we have deviations of that all the time. So you have to make sure you have enough seats. If we try to go to a smaller bus, then we could end up turning around to try and go back and get a larger bus, and that bus might not be available. I don't know if they want to elaborate any further on that, Mrs. Davis, but that's kind of where I see that as
I think the other piece was, like I was saying before, our buses drive the same run. So bus 17 at the high school level drives the same neighborhood as bus 17 in the middle school. So our middle school population is usually our largest and most consistent group of riders. So if you had a smaller bus at the high school level, then you wouldn't be able to fit all the middle school students on that bus. Do you know what I mean? Because they drive for all levels in that area.
I
So
understand them
Yeah.
driving at all levels, but I'm just wondering if there's any way that you could figure the routes so that
so then
there
you'd
could
have
be some
drivers like.
smaller.
Yeah, I know. We get lots of ideas to work on transportation, and it's just really hard logistically because
Of the
yeah,
obligations that you
and we cover all the way up to Salem and all the way down to Black Point and everything.
Right.
So it's a lot of mileage every day. Yeah. Thank you though.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
the way the layout of our town is not the most conducive. It's not like a
No.
nice round circle where we could kind of, but it gets tricky, especially way up, again, up by Salem.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'll let my other board members.
Yeah, thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mhm.
John, do you have anything?
Yes, I'll start out with 2 years ago when the American Rescue Plan started, and I forget the exact figure, but you hired about 15 additional staff, approximately.
Yes,
About
approximately.
right?
Yeah,
And,
there were in the operating budget, there
And
was.
I believe Eric said that somebody asked a question now, how many of those are still on board as staff that are permanent? And I believe he said 7.
And I believe that's accurate, or very close to accurate.
Now, the idea initially with those American Rescue Plan funds, when they ran out, the staff that were hired is supposed to sunset also, along with the money. But that didn't seem to happen here.
Well, it didn't happen in many worse cases elsewhere, if we put it
Right.
that way, sort of thing. A lot of the staff members that, social workers, we wanted to keep, we're trying to support a lot of the mental health needs of some of the students still, amongst some other technology, 1 or 2 technology positions as well. So, but there was around that 7 number. It was a lot of based on need, and that was the decision, that the Board of Ed had pushed forward with their budget. 23-24, I think that was last year, but the year before. So.
Okay, as far as teachers with the BS, you know off the top of your head how many you have that have the BS?
With a bachelor's,
And you have different levels, I know.
you do, yeah. You have master's, bachelor's.
Right. Do you know the numbers on those levels?
John, I can't give you the exact number. Very rough. We could look that up and
Oh,
pull that,
okay.
yeah, and
Let me
either
ask
give it to
this,
you.
of the two, which do you have majority in, the BS or the MS?
I would want to either split or more, or more MS, more masters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is the average salary of a BS?
Well, it depends on where they fall on the scale. So,
Right, I
an
know.
entry level
Yeah, I know there's a
BS is
range,
about
but
about
it-
48,000.
40?
Up to your step 12 is sitting around that
and
80,000.
For a master's?
For a master's, a couple thousand more in each
Okay.
at each step.
Okay.
Yep.
When Rich mentioned the professional development programs, and I know you have speakers come in.
Sometimes.
To help with it. Now, are they done on site, or do the teachers have to go somewhere else?
A lot of it's done on site. Take, for instance, our Wit and Wisdom, the new reading program.
Yeah.
We've had individuals come in to district working with our teachers on site. Myself, Mrs. Spaziano have been part of those, Mrs. Davis. So that's all on site. So majority of them are on site, but there's an
Now, when you
associated
have these
cost.
speakers, whatever come in, they're paid a stipend or a fee.
They're paid a fee.
Now, do the teachers have to pay any percentage of that?
No, that's part of the operating budget cost under that
Okay.
professional development line item.
And if they say it's in Wallingford?
If they're traveling to Wallingford, as an example,
Do they pay for their own gas, or does the school pick it up?
they have the option to have mileage reimbursement, but we try and encourage them to carpool.
Okay,
But they get paid at the IRS rate
okay.
of whatever it is per mile. I don't know what the exact number is off the top of my head right now.
But John, can I
Go
just
ahead.
on that same subject though? It was a 244% increase in professional development.
It was, yes, yep. And again, we've got a lot of time spent in district with individuals from Wit and Wisdom coming in. There's a couple other areas of professional development too that we've seen we've needed. Come on up and we can share. But that's the majority of it.
And just, to put it in numbers, it's going from 35,000 to 120,000, so that's,
Correct.
Also Board of Ed goal too,
Right, so some of the funds are to support, work towards our Board of Ed goals. So there's some professional development money in there to support our intentional play at the early literacies, which is a state requirement that we incorporate play at, the K2 level. Addition to that, we have some of these funds were covered by grant funds. So when the new reading program came out, the state did provide what was called the Right to Read Act grant funds. I used some of those funds to support the professional development in the first year of implementation. Those funds were a 2-year, one-time only funds, so those are not there anymore. So what I had used to support the professional development previously was in a grant that's no longer available. Addition to that, our title fund has actually reduced our titles funds, federal funds, last year reduced by $85,000 as a result of some of our changes in our demographic in the community. And so we utilized about $15,000 of those grant funds to support another mandate from the state on supporting paraeducator professional development. And so those funds support the professional development necessary for our paraeducators. So those are some examples of the increased costs as a result of some grant funds just not being available anymore.
Yeah, thanks.
go ahead, John, thanks.
I have a handout here. It has to do with capital, but what it has to do with is the notebooks and the different computers that the students and the teachers get. There was, the total was like over $400,000.
That's the acquisition plan, I think you're speaking to, yeah, which is in part of the capital budget.
Now, I noticed you have a Chromebook 3110, Dell Latitude 3140, the touch boards, and then the teachers had a Dell 7740. On each of those, what's the life of those? And once that expires, you automatically get new ones. And what happens to the old ones?
No, some we pass down. Our seniors when they graduate. Let me start with the life expectancy. 4 years. You have a 4-year warranty on them.
But that doesn't mean they're not good. Just because
No, it doesn't mean they're not good,
Yeah.
but we do have a replacement cycle. And again, what the numbers you're talking about are not in this operating budget.
Oh, I know that.
Those are
I know.
separate.
I'm
Yeah,
just-
okay. Just want to be clear. So we have a whole device replacement recycle. So when students come in, the kindergarten level, they get a device. Then in 5th grade, when they go to the middle school, they get a device. And when they go to the 9th grade, they get a new device. So, and then we refurbish some as well.
So the Dell 7740 that the teachers get, this says middle school. That's all picked up by the school district.
It's part of the
because of the acquisition program.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's all for now. I may have something later, though.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks,
Thank
Jim.
you.
Me, okay. Just a couple things. One on the revenue side, we get those aren't hard in yet, are they? We're still waiting to hear what the cost sharing and the special ed costs from the state. Do they have?
Yeah, we're hoping to be held harmless with our educational cost sharing. It's slated to go down. It was around 260,000, I think, was educational cost sharing. That's money that comes to the town. The excess costs, which is different, that's a special education reimbursement for students who hit a threshold. We used to be, this is what's frustrating with the state, we used to be over 80% reimbursement, and right now we're currently at 60% reimbursement. We have lobbied, I've written testimony, legislative or board members, and everybody across the state is trying to get more special education dollars. Now the governor released $40 million, but that nets us an additional $86,000 for the current year. We need more.
A lot of towns that's got to be spread out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So 86,000 of that comes to East Lyme. Yeah. Yep. So.
Just on the equipment, the school data center, is that integrated with the towns, or do you have your own data center?
When you say data, it's like our
Your
whole
servers?
servers, no, we have our own. That's not
Okay.
integrated with the towns. We have servers that are at the high school that then branch out and run our other buildings.
Okay, have you ever looked into like an outside data service to handle all that equipment?
Well, we have managed service, so custom
Okay.
computers, who we contract with, they manage a
Right.
lot of that, but and assist us, and we use E-rate dollars to purchase various items. But no, we purchase our own servers, and we make sure that they're up to date and doing what they need to do.
Okay. So I know a lot of places are looking,
Yeah, kind of going to the
data center where they handle the equipment. It's they upgrade it, they do everything right there, and sometimes it's spread out. Of course, you don't have that big chunk
Yeah.
of money every 4 or 5 years when the server goes bad and you have to buy a new one. So
Yeah,
something-
I'll look into that a little bit more, Paul, to see, because I know we do some of that, but
Well, you gotta have it somewhere. Somebody, we don't want to hear, but let's see what the thing is on. Now, the audit fee, that's your percentage for the towns. Is there any other? You guys have any other? Anybody have any audit requirements with anybody else, or that's just a single audit with the town? Okay.
Mariana, do we have any other? No? Okay,
I'm
sorry.
surprised.
I was writing and listening. Nope.
I'm sure there'll be some.
I didn't think- yeah, I just
I'm
wanted to
sure
make
there'll be
sure.
more coming down the road because everybody's requiring an audit for something.
Yes.
And then I noticed a lot of the last one here. Some of the sports are gone co-op. So I don't know how that gets handled, funding wise, or
Yeah, we do have, it's a small percentage because,
Okay.
co-ops usually form, you don't have enough students for a
Right.
particular sport. So I can tell you our boys swim team was a co-op. There's a co-op ice hockey. But other than that, we have a pretty profound number of students that are, wrestling is another one, and gymnastics. Yeah, gymnastics. So
is the
there's a
town
handful.
Is there any funding for those programs?
Yes, I don't know the exact amount of what we receive, but if we're running the sport, but again, there's not a ton of funding that's coming in. We're
Okay,
paying a
I was
coach
just-
a couple $1,000s.
And
to
I'm a
run it.
former hockey parent, and
Oh, okay.
I was told because we were a co-op that the town didn't pay anything to
Well,
the
and-
sport. So I don't know
Yeah, and
if that policy
hockey-
has changed.
Well, hockey co-op is different too. That's its own entity.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't actually fund any money. Parents raise money for
Mm-hmm.
the hockey co-op, and there's a number of different districts that are involved in the co-op for both boys and girls. So that's kind of a unique one in itself.
Yeah, I know. I had to put that together.
Oh, okay.
I put
So
that
you know it.
together
You know it well then.
because the school said that co-ops didn't get any money. That's why we did it.
Okay.
So. it was
All
just-
right. But different when schools are working together versus
Okay.
parent run. That's
Okay,
a
now,
parent
do you
run.
get say it's with Fitch or Norwich Tech, do they contribute to that, or do we get funding from
Well,
that school?
usually it's just two schools that are coming together. Like the boys swim is Fitch, I think. No, not Fitch. I forget which town it is. NFA. I think they send us a couple swimmers over. I don't know if do we take in funding for that? It's minimal though.
Every little bit helps, though.
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah, agreed.
You want a minimal amount per student to offset the cost of the stipend
For the coach.
for the coach. I can look and see, I know we got something, I feel like
Yeah.
NFA or Norwich Tech or something
Yeah,
like that.
they pay a small percentage.
Yeah, NFA or, I can't remember, but.
Yep. You can check on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have many that wouldn't be repetitive. I'm wondering, are there opportunities to cost share in regard to professional development or software? My guess is no with licensing, but if Wit and Wisdom is in other districts.
Yeah, I don't know, Annalise, if we had any opportunities that you've come across with some of the.
We have with other.
Sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. I don't mind standing. Thank you. Though.
Let's sit down.
So we can't cost share professional development for software. It's just not, I've tried, because it would give us larger purchasing power. but I'll continue to try to, do that along the way. But with professional development, what we have done is we haven't necessarily shared the cost of services for Wit and Wisdom, but we have opened up our classrooms and gone into other districts' classrooms for observation. So we have participated in some of that, and we plan on doing more. Waterford is a district who's adopted Wit and Wisdom, so we have a really nice partnership with Waterford, and so it's definitely a means of professional development that isn't costly at all. It's just a matter of providing teachers the opportunity to come in and learn from one another. So we have done that.
Thank you.
So just back to that BA/MA question, Stephen just pulled up that information. So actually have 12 individuals that are at the bachelor's level and 163 that are at the master's level. So there is quite the discrepancy. So, yeah, majority are MA, yeah, exactly.
So, everyone all set? Any more?
I've got just a couple more, maybe.
Oh, sorry. Scott, we'll get to you in 1 second. We'll get Rich there. Thanks. Go ahead, Rich.
Okay. There were some items that were $0 values in 2025 that have values for 2026, such as object number 55800 at the middle school went from 0 for mileage in 2025 to 775 for this year. I know it's a small amount, but why was there a 0 amount for mileage last year?
They must not have budgeted anything for any travel. There was a lot less travel. We're starting to get back into traveling in this post-COVID world, going to different locations and so forth. I don't have a direct answer for that, Rich, as to why it was 0. They just must not have budgeted for it, and they decided to put in some dollars for something that.
For some travel, I think, for some conferences and things that before they weren't visiting.
Yeah.
Or weren't able to go to because of COVID. So.
Okay. And then again, for their software at the middle school, it was 0 in 2025 and then 1950 for 2026. When I see 0 amounts.
Yeah, and then it jumps. You're right. Something was.
Even little, it just you wonder about the utility of it.
Understandable, yep.
And then the last question is at central office, or I don't know if it's central office or if it's the high school. For the high school, textbooks doubled between last year and this year. And that seemed to be questionable to me. I don't know what the explanation would be for that. Did we increase the number of courses?
Do a replacement of, I think it's a replacement of one of our departments.
So I've been working with the curriculum instructional leaders at the high school to develop and sustain a textbook replacement cycle. So that is a part of the cycle.
Oh, okay.
During COVID, we kind of fell off that track.
Right.
So that is, I believe, to support new textbooks in science.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And this is where my hand scratching gets me in trouble. For central office or the high school, I'm not sure which, but I think for central office, professional development was 0 for 2025 and 10,000 for 2026.
Oh, yeah, Infinite, yeah. Our central office staff members. Infinite Campus was one of them, going to an Infinite Campus conference, and then a Frontline. Some of our software products that we use.
And the same thing in the past because of COVID.
That's right, she didn't attend those. So, yeah. So it's just two added conferences that an individual central office is attending.
Oh, okay. And then when I had asked about Coastal Connections, that was a fairly minimal cost program, if I remember.
Just under $400,000.
Okay, so not quite so minimal.
Not so. Yeah.
Did we realize that $400,000 in savings for the budget anywhere along the line? And when was the program disbanded?
So was it last year was the first year that it wasn't running. Those teachers that were they were called out and they were in a separate location. The last location was at central office.
Right.
They moved back into the high school, so they absorbed back into the high school. So when we added up the FTE, that's like when you saw that FTE total, 0.2, this teacher's doing a 0.2, what used to be coastal, but now it's pathways, but then they're teaching other courses as well. So I want to say there was some savings, but not a lot, because those teachers are still working, at the high school level.
Because a part-time teacher retired, we did not replace it, that 0.5, remember?
Yeah.
So we did not replace in 23, 24.
Yeah, yeah.
That was like a $40,000 savings.
Yeah, about a $40,000 savings that we had. So not a huge savings, Rich, but there was some savings moving from the coastal program. Yeah, because the coastal program as well, not just the staffing, but their own program needs, their own supplies, all of that got absorbed back into the high school.
Okay, so kind of like when your kids grow out of diapers, you never see that money.
Good analogy, I guess.
Okay, and then I remember the driving force for creating the coastal connections was that we had some students that just didn't do well in a conventional classroom. And
We did.
if there isn't that program, does the Pathways meet the needs for those kids?
So far, yes, it has, because of the opportunities that kids are going off to do and engage in. It's been very supportive. We have a classroom space up in our library,
Right.
off the back part of the library, which helps to run some of those courses, and a support center in a way for those students. So it's been okay. I have not heard anything to the contrary. I guess I'll put it that way.
Okay. If I remember from the recesses of my mind, that program was about maybe 20 to 25 students.
It had
And
declined,
of the
yeah.
170,
When it was at
is
its
it
prime,
less
yeah,
than that?
years ago, probably about 10 years ago, it was around that 25, and it was running actually over by Furman's Garage. It had dwindled some, and it was down. We tried to get some tuition students. At one point, we had 1 or 2 tuition students,
Right.
part of it. It just didn't materialize after that. We were down to about 15 students, 14, 15 students, and that's when we decided to move it over because, again, numbers were dwindling. We had staff. We absorbed them back into the high school.
Okay. For the dwindling numbers, were kids identified for the coastal connections?
It
in
was
the
a
past?
mix. It was a mix of students that had IEPs and some that did not have IEPs.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so we have Scott McAllister, who is zooming in. He is in a different time zone. Thank you for staying awake. And you had a question or two, Scott?
Yeah, so thanks, Denise. I'm sorry I couldn't be that person to talk with you all. Just a couple questions, maybe from a fairly high-level standpoint. I'm wondering about usage of counseling and mental health support services for students and even for teachers and staff. How much would you say gets used versus how much is available just waiting for them to come in, for example?
Well, used regularly. We continue, and I think if you spoke to any district, you would find that the need for those services continues to increase. It's been on the rise, and our counselors are extremely busy. We partnered with CHC, which is an outside organization that comes in and provides counseling service. I'm not sure what their numbers are up to. 17. So we have 17 students. CHC comes in, they use a space, and they're charging parents insurance to run those services. So that's in addition to what we offer for our counselors across high school and middle school, and at the elementary level too. So it's a growing need, I guess, to answer your question.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you. Maybe just 2 more questions. One is about student performance, maybe at the high school level, relative to class sizes. Is there a critical mass, say, of numbers of kids in a class that you think is when is it too much? And I guess I'm just sort of thinking about the question that Denise asked earlier about class sizes and how ours do seem to be in many ways smaller than other local districts.
It depends. A lot is like I'll give the example of a biology class where there's a science lab. You can only safely fit so many students in that science lab. Additionally, the way that our high school is configured, our classrooms, some of them, especially in the older A wing, are not large rooms. They're not large spaces. So we fit, when we can, as many kids into some of those classes, but they now have devices on their desks, backpacks, because nobody uses a locker anymore. So that's another component that, we are dealing with, but, for the most part, our class sizes, as we talked earlier, some are on the lower end. I think we're taking a look at that. And some, if you had a larger space, like a math class, for instance, it was last year, it was 31 students in a specific math class. But on the other end, too, there could be a class with a lot less students. So all of that factors in.
So it sounds like you're saying that you do require smaller class sizes for some of the maybe lab-oriented classes.
Yes, some
but
specific.
Maybe some of the other classes that don't have a lab component, English, math, for example, it might be okay for it to be bigger.
Yes, absolutely. Up to however many we can fit, in a room.
Got it. Thanks. Next question is about teacher satisfaction, teacher, retainment. What do you consider the issues that are most important in keeping good and great teachers?
Well, I'd say a number of them. Number one, probably the most important is our climate and culture. We've tried this year very hard to do a lot of surveying of our teachers, and the feedback that we're getting back relates to having a positive climate and culture, having reasonable class sizes, having opportunities for professional development and growth. Teachers appreciate that. From what we found, that's some of the results from the surveying that we've done. Those would be the core areas. I think I'm proud to say I think East Lyme has done a very positive job in retaining staff. We're a good district. We work hard to support our educators, provide them what they need. And I think that resonates in keeping them, in district and not going off, somewhere else. Even where somewhere else might be a higher pay. Waterford pays more money than East Lyme does, in teachers. Now, over the years, have some gone to Waterford? Yes, but we retain a lot of our teachers, I think, because of the support that we provide. If that helps to answer that.
Yeah, thanks. Do you think there's a difference, for example, on this particular satisfaction retainment index for, say, a 12th grade physics teacher versus a kindergarten teacher? They're very different ways of being a teacher.
Yes, it could. Very, very different ways. A kindergarten teacher, we have 2 kindergarten teachers this year that have 20 and 21 students in their class. It's been a challenge for them. We provided them support, but when you walk in those rooms and you sit down, and we were in one, was it 2 weeks ago, it's a lot. It's busy. Even at this stage of the year where routines are all, in place, it can be a real challenge. Versus, Mr. Dowd is here and teaches physics. I don't know, Tim, you got anything you want to share on that one?
Little kids, big kids.
Big kid, yeah. There's a difference there.
All right.
So I hope that helps
Thanks very much.
to help answer your question.
Thank you, Scott. Did anyone else? John?
I have a few more. On administrative salaries, 51010, how many staff people does that include?
So there's been no change in our total administrative structure, John, other than last year when we brought in a full-time athletic director. But remember, previous to that, it was a stipended position, for a teacher. So the way it worked out, it was almost a wash, in cost. But I don't have the exact count of admin.
Would you say a dozen or more? doesn't 15?
Yeah, if you're talking across
Yeah.
all the buildings,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
that's-
upwards of 20
As principals and
assistant principals,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes,
So
yeah.
around a dozen, maybe. a
And
little more.
directors, if you want to include directors, yeah. If you're including directors
Yeah.
as well, there's probably around 20. Give it an even number of.
17.5 FTE.
There you go. 17.5 FT. I should know that off the
Exactly.
top of my head by now. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes. 17.5.
Okay. Next line down, 5110, certified salaries,
Mm-hmm.
which is teachers. How many teachers are in the school now?
Just under 300.
298 is the number of teachers, that's not the FTE though.
298.
Now, has that changed in the last couple of years?
I wouldn't say it's.
I mean, are there more than there used to be 3 years ago? 2 years ago?
Yeah, if you, the information that we had shared with you in that, the email that you got, there was a clickable link in there that took you to graphs. Actually, Denise has it right there. That has the high school last 5 years of what the total count of FTE teachers has been. It's been pretty steady at the, but you can see all levels, elementary, middle, and high school. So I'll give you the exact numbers.
Okay, and the next line down from
So
that?
if you want, so at the high school level,
Yeah,
over these last 5 years, the student enrollment is down by 135. So it went from 1,025 students in 2020 to 2021 to 890 in the 24-25 year. And the certified staff FTE went from 105 and a half in 2020 to 21 to 106.8 in the current year.
so the student population in that situation went down, but the teachers went up. Not by a lot, but
Students decreased, yeah, teachers went up or leveled, remained leveled. There's that difference I mentioned earlier, that bubble when we were at the middle school, we had reduced to Kiva, that bubble went up to the high school. We haven't had a large reduction, excuse me, at the high school level of staffing.
okay, so the next line down from that is 51120, the para-educators salary.
Yes, yes.
How many para-educators are there?
And what's the exact number right now? 100 and today? 114 is the number that I had in my head.
And that's throughout the district.
Yes, across the entire district.
And from what I remember from a prior statement, the salaries of the para-educators are, I'm going to say, maybe a third of what the teachers get?
Yes, 20 to 25,000.
Okay. All right, then one more. The buses, 55100. Have the count on the buses stayed the same over the last few years? I mean, have you,
I don't have an exact number, John, of what the differential is. I mean, I don't think it's changed drastically, and I think it varies across the course of the year. I will say, I think a lot of parents do drive their students to school. So I guess in essence it probably has gone down some, but I don't know the exact number.
okay, the
It's not a count.
The
that
reason
you-
I ask is, I go by where the school buses are kept almost every day
Yes,
when I go shopping.
we need a new location for that too, by the
I know.
way. So
You're
just
supposed
putting that out there.
They were supposed to be at the police station
Yes, it
in the
was.
beginning.
Yes, correct.
Anyway, I go by there quite often, and typically on the back corner, there's always 2, 3, 4 buses sitting there. that I
Correct.
can tell haven't been used. Now, do you pay generally by the bus? And if they're not being used, can you get some sort of reimbursement for those buses not being used?
Well, a couple things with that. We oftentimes, with our fleet, we've had buses that break down. So when one breaks down, that other one is on the road, and we've had more than one in the course of a day or a week. The other piece is when you're driving by, they might be there, but they go out to run, like a magnet school run or the sports. They're
These
used
buses, they don't, because.
You're
they're
saying
not
that they
the-
haven't
they're-
moved?
They're not the big buses.
Oh, they're smaller buses. Oh, okay,
So
all
they're
right.
in the corner there, and they stay there, because I go
Okay.
back and forth in all times of the day.
Spares too.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, we run 21 buses on our routes
There's 21.
And 7 small, we call them vans, they're the smaller buses.
Yes, there's 21 regular and seven vans. Preschool, they run preschool. They run a lot of individual transportations for students that require individual transportation.
But it might be something to look at.
As to the total count, yeah.
Not the total count, but any buses that are not being used, week after week after week. If they're just sitting there. I mean, I could be wrong, but I go by enough to know those buses are just sitting there and not being used.
You can help us find another location for them too, then.
Okay.
Because the spot is growing worse. I'll put a plug in for, that area where there's a mud pit. It was supposed to be temporary, and that was 15, 16 years ago. So we need new space. But I will take a look at that again.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
That's it. That's all.
Anybody else? Well, thank you. Oh, Scott, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, the bus discussion has got me thinking. I'm wondering if you are tracking use of buses on a, say, weekly basis or monthly basis, according to seasons, according to athletic support needs, the usual back and forth that the school needs, and whether or not there might be an opportunity, for example, to use, say, Gen AI to assess whether you are deploying your buses optimally. Is that something you guys have looked at and might consider?
I appreciate that. Yeah, that's a good thought, Scott. We can look at that.
Anything else, Scott?
Nope, that's good. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I appreciate all your hard work. Now it's our hard work. One of the things, we talked a lot of numbers and a lot of percentages, but I just kind of want to point out that we went from a Board of Ed operations budget in 2021-22 of $52,097,000 to $54,108,000 in 22-23 to $64,025,000 in 24, and you're asking for a $4,032,725,000 increase to bring it up to $64,057,400. So, as we've been saying through all of our meetings, this is just a really, really tough number. It's a tough number for all of our residents, our fixed income, and, it's going to be, obviously we have to talk about stuff, but it's a really, when we look at what the impact would be on, everybody's annual taxes, it's a significant amount. And, it just concerns me that every year it just keeps growing, not just, what was our last CPI, 3%, and now we're looking at 6.72%. You can see where you had the really big increase a couple years ago. I think a lot of that was still COVID related. But, I think these large increases are just not sustainable for the town year over year. This is just me talking. I, have felt very encouraged about our work with the CIP and getting the town and the board to really come together and think holistically on how we can work together so we're not duplicating efforts. So hopefully we can continue along that thinking. But yeah, we've got some tough negotiations, and the same goes for the town. the town increased from a total town operations of 18,472,000 to 20 million to 22 million. But I think the town has made some big investments these last 2 years in things that, you know, were very important around public safety. And, you know, we're trying, as Dan says all the time, to take care of the things that we have, maybe not take on new projects and all that kind of thing. But, you know, I also sort of felt that, you know, as the Board of Finance member, I, by state law, was invited in to listen in on the contract negotiations. And I think that they did the right thing in terms of trying to retain teachers, because we were significantly in the lower, you know, range with our competitiveness. But I think there was also a feeling that that was going to come at a cost too, and we were going to have to figure out what else we could do if we, you know, if the priority was there to retain those teachers, and we you know, there's only so much money. So again, this is just my feeling, and we will finish up with the town budgets over the next week or so, and then start with our deliberations. But I really do appreciate, you know, great working relationship with, you know, all the board, and hopefully we can get to a spot where, you know, everybody is, or nobody's happy, but no one's unhappy, somewhere in the middle there. But
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to come down and share information, and I know you have a tough job.
yeah, thank you. So then, for budget review for capital projects, so too, I almost feel like after so many capital project meetings I went through, this is like an after whatever, but we do have a few things. You know, you had already spoken to them in your presentation. You know, you were, you know, I think Chris did a great job kind of identifying your priorities, and I think we got to a good spot there. So the CIP committee put forward their recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, and that came here. I don't know whether there's any updates since the last CIP or anything.
No.
Okay. So, does anyone have any other questions about their projects?
I don't think at this time. Appreciate the work of the CIP subcommittee and the individuals involved with that. I'll look at this a little bit more closely, but I don't have anything at this time.
I can just note, I just want to thank that capital committee. It's great to be back to an opportunity where we're coming together in that manner. That went away for a while, so kudos to our first selectman and Mr. Debate, all of us coming back together on that. So thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda would be public discussion, where anyone can speak to whatever comes under the purview of the Board of Finance. Did anyone want to speak? No? Next on the agenda is board comments. Does anyone want anything to add at this point? No? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.